This is the High School Crossfire. Welcome back.
Speaker, do you acknowledge that taking something at the expense of the other is the same as prioritizing one thing over the other?
No.
On support at the expense, on support of the creative sectors, on the expense of the traditional sectors, do you believe that other sectors are going to be left behind?
No.
Are you aware that 75% of African countries depend on traditional sectors, agriculture, mining, and fisheries, as you mentioned?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you believe that when you shift their support and take it to the creative sectors, don't you think that their backbone is going to be cracked, which is the traditional sectors?
Are you aware that their backbone is already cracked?
By shifting your attention from them, it's going to make them even just break down. That means there's not going to be sustainability as mentioned on their side. Now, how are you going to handle the changes in trends, because they do change with time? We see that their artists are really releasing songs every single time, but not all of them hit. How are you going to handle that?
Is this a cross-examination?
I'm waiting for your answer.
To be answered in my reply speech.
You claim that our music enhances culture, right? But then you say that our musicians themselves, they are actually copying the culture of the Western world, right? How are you improving culture in the long run, as mentioned by your speakers?
We are not copying cultures of the Western world.
Well, this is really seen in reality, seeing Shiba wearing what she wears. You claim that can countries develop without economic stability?
No.
Thank you. This means that if they can't develop without economic stability, it means that by taking away the funds, they are not going to develop. That means, from our team affirmative, the countries are not developing in the long run. So, development in Africa is already driven by traditional industries. Don't you think that when the funds are taken away, don't you think that all African countries that were even developing are going to go behind?
If we are developing, why are we still referred to as third world countries?
So, panel, as we receive from our affirmative side, we say that, one, there's not going to be sustainability in our income, as they claim. They claim that there's going to be sustainability, but we say, one, there are going to be trends in music and wants of people, which means their music, their creative sector is not going to be on demand, which means there's not going to be flow of income. Where's the sustainability going to come in, and henceforth development is not going to be seen. Secondly, their speaker agrees that traditional sectors are the backbones of African countries. This means that if this funding is taken away from them, these African countries are going to just tremble down and fall. That is not what we want for Africa as team opposition. As team opposition, what we come here to tell you? We come here to tell you that actually there is no sector that should be taken at the expense of the other, because we believe that, first of all, as the traditional sectors are already our backbones, they need even more. They need even more funding. They already claim that they have very many cracks and all that. Yes, that's why they need even more funding. They claim that that the creative sector is growing at a rate of 12.5%. If it is growing, why are we funding it again? Why don't we fund the traditional sectors that are our backbones to make sure that our countries develop, and to make sure that our countries go on from one level to another? And then, well, we see that there is a very big competition at the global end. We see very many countries which have stable funding. Look at the US, look at all those big countries with a stable funding. Now, if we bring Africa in this kind of game, their competition is going to be as low as 0.001. That is not what we want for Africa in the long run. So I end by saying that the creative sectors should not be funded at the expense of traditional sectors, because they are our backbone. Thank you.
So, do you acknowledge that your side of the house is currently facing challenges?
Yes, we do. That's why we need the funding.
Okay. Do you acknowledge that the challenges affect the amount of revenue generated from your traditional sectors?
But it's still our backbone.
It's a yes or no question. Please answer.
Do you need an answer?
Moving on. Have you implemented any measures in place to solve the challenges you currently face?
Yes.
Give me an example.
We are seeing agrotechnology in place already.
Thank you very much. Do you acknowledge that through technological transformations and innovation, you can solve the challenges you face on your side of the world?
It is science-based.
Still technology. So that's a yes. Moving on. Are you aware that technological transformation and innovation is under creative sectors, as shown by the motion? Yes or no?
Agrotechnology is what you're
Still
referring to?
technology. Thank you very much. Do you acknowledge that supporting of one sector more than the other can actually benefit failing sectors?
Yes, we do. That's why we don't need you to be funded.
Thank you very much. Moving on. Are you aware of the contradiction you made when you said we should support traditional sectors since they are failing compared to creative sectors?
Yes, well,
Thank
it's not
you,
a
that's a
contradiction.
yes,
It's
that's-
actually, what I really meant is that because they are failing and they are our backbone,
Regardless, we move on. Moving on. Do you acknowledge that Africa has unique cultures?
I beg your pardon?
Do you acknowledge that African countries have unique cultures?
Yes, they do have many cultures.
It's a yes or no question, so that is a yes. So is there any competition we can have with the Western world if we have unique cultures?
Yes, as long as you don't have proper funding and the proper resources needed, which you don't have.
But then you acknowledge we have unique cultures. Contradiction. Then furthermore, are you aware of South Korea and Singapore using technological transformation to develop the agriculture system? Yes or no?
No.
Dear panel. So, from that cross-examination, I hope you've all been enlightened at an incompetent team opposition we have. On asking them whether they are aware of the challenges they face, they tell us yes. So how do they plan to give us sustainable development if they are well aware they're facing challenges? Challenges where we showed you in our first speech, we have climate change, low youth involvement. So how do you plan on giving us sustainable development if you don't have labor, first of all, if you don't have people willing to engage in your activities? Then on asking them whether they're well aware that technological transformation, which is on our side of the house, which is creative sectors, that technological transformation and innovation that they are pushing to solve their challenges is still under creative sectors, and they said yes. What does that mean? At the end of the day, they are siding with team proposition where they are all acknowledging that in order for us to have sustainable development and transformation, at the end of the day, we should enhance the creative sectors by investing more in them. Then they come and tell us that they're going to be using digital transformation and all to solve their problems. As I've shown you, they are still under what? Our creative sectors. They came and told us that Singapore and South Korea have developed because of what? The agriculture, not knowing that they have actually used the creative sectors. For example, technology that our side of the house is advocating for. They have used technology to develop themselves. For example, through hydroponics, and because they have used this, they have managed to build the leading producers of these agricultural things. So therefore, we are seeing that at the end of the day, the team opposition is not actually against us; they are for us. Why? They are encouraging us to use the creative sectors through technology and innovation. They're encouraging us to push more of these technology and information and transformation so that we can have sustainable development. And that I don't really see how their side of the house can win this debate if they are only showing us that through siding with us, they can win the motion. And then furthermore, we asked them if supporting of one sector can lead to the growth of other failing sectors, and they said yes. So what does that mean? When we support the creative sectors, we're going to be able to enhance other sectors, as we showed you in our in our speeches. That when we support these sectors, So as I conclude, I would like to show you that team opposition no longer has a case. Why? They're still advocating for technology and innovation, which as stated by the motion is still under creative sectors. Proud to propose.
I just want to appreciate both sides and both schools for putting up such a spirited round of debate. It was really good. Personally, I really enjoyed it, and I want to applaud you for that. I really want to appreciate the first speaker from the affirmative. You are really outstanding. Also want to appreciate the third speaker from the negative, really understanding. Then the fourth speaker of affirmative, that is good answering, good asking of the questions. And then to the fourth negator, that is the good asking of the questions. Good asking and good response, okay? Good asking, good response. Affirm 1, that's very good. Negator 3, that's very good. Now, where did I base my judgment from? Ladies and gentlemen, for such a resolution, this is a resolution that another team could take it, policy, then also another team could take it as value. For such a resolution, where, for example, one team is telling you that now, you see, one I want to appreciate by the team negative. Team negative, you did very good to come up. Actually, the alternative you came up with of balancing the economy is such a good one. Because on another day, another team could take a coward argument of saying that, no, let us also now prioritize the agricultural sector instead of prioritizing the economy. Instead of prioritizing the creative sector. But then you're coming up and telling us that, no, let us balance them. It is really good of you. I also like the fact that now these people come up and actually also now tell you that, okay, for us, the reason why we do not look at prioritizing the agricultural sector is because of the different challenges it faces. One, talking about the climate change, talking about the industrialization, talking about the overpopulation. What we hear from the first and the second speakers is only to address the issue of skilled labor. We now hear the argument to do with climate change in the third speech. That's why you say I was able to appreciate the third speaker. But even when the third speaker comes to talk about the issue of climate change, how are you going to address climate change? It's still not enough for you to come and say that, no, you see climate change is there because we are not prioritizing this sector. It's because we are doing this. No, tell us that, no, you say at the end of the day, if we are able to do A, B, C, D, then even the climate change that you're talking about is not going to be an issue. Because at the end of the day, you are debating what you intend to do, not what is just in place. So if they're now telling about issues of climate change, issues of industrialization, issues of population growth or too much population, you're saying that, no, climate change is there because of this. No, tell them, what are you going to do? So no, what about now the issue of industrialization now? What about now the other issue they're talking about of overpopulation? Remember, Team Negative, you have the burden of refute and the burden to give an alternative. So you did very good in giving the alternative 100%. I really applaud you for that. But what about the burden you have of the burden of refutal? So which address do you have to the issue of climate change? Which address do you have to the issue of overpopulation? And which address do you have to the issue of industrialization? Yes, you did good in the issue of talking about the digitalization, talking about maybe the skilled labor and part of it. So that is where I base my judgment from. The marks are really high on my side because it was a good round. I give both of you 15 for style. I give you 31 for strategy. I give you 30 for strategy. I give you 32 for content. I give you 31. You had more statistics than them in their content, making a total of 78 for Team Affirmative and a total of 76 for Team Negative. So according to me, it's a win for Team Affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you, debaters, for this round. Personally, I can say it was a fair debate. It was not so good for me because I think both teams could do better. But then, to the basics, most of the speakers failed on their speaker roles, especially the third speaker from this side, to the affirmative side, and then this side, mainly the second speaker. But then two, I want to caution you on certain things that you might not do, you might not need to do in other debates because they will cost you. One is the idea of arguing outside the parameters that have been set by the debate or by the team. If you're going to do so, then you should mention it as either a benchmark strategy or a reference. Otherwise, for you to come and use an example outside your parameters, you are then mandated to provide a guarantee or a relationship between whatever you're saying and how it relates with the parameters. From this debate, the negative team wanted to use South Korea as a benchmark for agriculture and how they can sustain themselves with agriculture. However, our question remained, how is South Korea related to African countries? How is the situation in South Korea really correlated with the situation in these African countries? I want to commend you. You presented a very nice alternative, like Judge Solomon has said. And your argument was that this is the backbone. Traditional sectors are like the backbone of these African countries. And if we do this at the expense of these traditional sectors, we are most likely going to suffer economic recession. Very good. But how does your alternative then deal with the economic recession that might come from the other ones? Or how are you going to solve the problems that are existent within status quo as highlighted by the opponent team? We did not get to hear that. Team Negative. Lastly, before I give the scores, you talked about the backbone, and your opponent says the backbone is already cracked. So if the backbone is cracked, what is the solution for either side? One side says the backbone is cracked because we do not have funds for the backbone, and the other side is saying we can generate more funds if we prioritize creative arts. Doesn't that cause a sensation to you that we are actually solving the problem of funds, these are the scores. Both of you, I gave you 14 for style. I feel like certain speakers did not do their speaker roles very well. Strategy is where I differed. I gave team affirmative 29 and team negative 27. Content, you really had to do a lot of research. None of you exploited all the African countries. You're basically mentioning Uganda here and there. We have very many African countries, 55. You could use all of them. In total, negative 66, affirmative 68. And for me, the win goes to affirmative. Thank you.
Now, I do believe most of the things have been mentioned. However, when we are to look at team affirmative, your standpoint was that we should prioritize the creative sector. And then team negative, from your first speaker's speech, we realized that you said that for a balance of trade, we should, rather than prioritize one sector and support it over the other, let's support both. However, personally, I don't think that argument subsisted in all your other arguments until maybe the fourth or the third, because most of yours, in all your speeches, it ends up reflecting as if you ended up feeling now a burden of trying to prove that it is agriculture, that agriculture can be sustainable, rather than showing us that both sectors can sustain the economy. So in the end, the debate ended up, as much as you expressly stated that that was your standpoint, in the end, the debate ended up appearing like this one is saying the creative economy, and not even just traditional sectors, but the agriculture sector. Because like the previous judges have mentioned, they gave you a perimeter and they talked about which you actually adhered to. They gave you a perimeter and they said that they will only discuss mining, farming, fishing. However, you do not engage them in, you give us an example of fishing, you talk about mining here and there, but you do not engage us definitely on all these other sectors, and only base your arguments on what? On the traditional sector and specifically agriculture. Now, also moving on, just like the previous judges have mentioned, you do not engage them in all the three challenges that they mentioned. They give you climate change, the traditional industrialization, and then also lack of youth participation, along with other tenets such as overpopulation. Then there is also a question you don't answer as team affirmative. They ask you, how is the creative economy going to sustain people in the rural areas that have been depending on what? On agriculture. Now that is something that you don't give an answer to. Then lastly, team negative once again. When they mention to you that the creative economy is actually developing by 12.5% yearly, that does not mean that that is the reason as to why we should not support them because they can sustain themselves alone. That actually goes to prove that the reason as to why the creative economy is developing that fast, that is why we should support it. You understand? You had to build your points of arguments better and also your rebuttals. In the end, I gave both of you 15 for style. Strategy, team affirmative 28, team negative 25. Content, team affirmative 25, negative 23, totaling to 68 for team affirmative and 63 for team negative. It is a unanimous decision. The team affirmative takes the day.